You can't do this. You can't do that. And they, I know. Well, I know. Well, if you know so much, why you keep doing the same thing? You can't do that. Like.
This portion of the video is brought to you by Amplify Stables. Having a good team is important when you are dealing with the horses. The energy, the passion, and the consistency all come together on the track and off the track. Amplify Stables gives you the full package if you are breaking horses or boarding horses. Please check out their website to get more information on how you can reach them. Check the link below.
Well, you can come into my little office.
Yeah, that would be real cool. Everything is all digital.
Everything.
All right, do you want the door closed or kind of keep
you
open?
Can close it.
Gary Boulanger, man, very nice to meet you.
The pleasure's mine.
You know, I watched you for many years, and I saw even when you came back, you know, and just following you because, you know, as I would call myself a newbie to horse racing. Like I know about horse racing, but I don't know all the details. So I decided to go behind the scenes to find out a little bit more, right? So this, all I knew was the forms, you know, and stuff like that, you know, make a couple of bets or whatever, but I didn't know all this stuff that goes on back here. Man, were you always a horse person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Family?
Uncles got me, but I was infatuated with horses from the time I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
All I wanted to do was ride or be around them and put my whole life to them. You know, they're been amazing animals for me. Led to a great career, and I love them immensely. Always looking to help them whatever way we can. Or as a rider, I was always looking to figure out what made their best running style. You know, were they a closer? Did you have to get them to shut off? Did you have to get them covered up? Or they needed to be in the front end? Learning what made them run the best is what I was always trying to figure out with every individual. And I was fortunate enough to win a few races.
I mean, for you, you probably started as a love, you know, just being around the horses, but you didn't imagine all this.
No,
right?
No. I mean, back then, all you wanted to do was ride or be around them. I mean, I never imagined when I was a kid that it would lead to a profession, being a professional jockey, to go on to become, you know, a two-time Hall of Famer, win the plate, win the Oaks, ride the Kentucky Derby, ride Breeders' Cups. I mean, you never imagine things like that. But even young in my career, everybody wants to win those big races. You know, you ask any young riders, if you could win one race, what would it be? And everybody's going to say the Kentucky Derby.
That's right.
Most prestigious race there is in our books. You know, now, you know, they might go like the Dubai World Cup because it's the biggest purse. Or they might say the Breeders' Cup Classic now. But to me, as a real horseman, it's always going to be the Derby.
You know, a lot of people love the Breeders' Cup. You know, the Kentucky Derby in Canada is the King's Plate.
Yes.
Formerly the Queen's Plate. But, I mean, you've touched on all these things. And just to see you here now, you know, you just... are you excited sometimes you want to get back to the track, or are you just happy to be where you are?
I mean, I'm happy I left on my terms.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't coming out of some surgery or an injury again. You know, I got to a point where I wasn't being offered those stake horses as much. You know, there was a few I had, and I didn't have any young up-and-coming 2-year-olds that year. I had Twin Cities that year as a 3-year-old, and I'd really liked him, you know, as a 2-year-old. So he was my focal point for that year, and no new ones came around. And when it come to, you know, the bigger barns, I was getting fewer and fewer opportunities with the Mark Cassies, the Kevin Attards, you know, things like that weren't as frequent as they were in the years prior. So I said, you know what? After I rode the Prince of Wales, and I got home that Tuesday, and I had talked to my agent, and we'd kind of been, you know, mulling it over for a few weeks. You know, like, you know, what about, you know, business and, you know, how come we don't have an older stake horse? We don't have an older filly stake. We don't have a 3-year-old filly. We don't have a 2-year-old filly. So you were like, what's going on? Doesn't Mark have anything for us? And I called him up on the way home, and I says, you know what, Gary? I think I'm going to call it a career. And I was named on 2 horses Thursday at Woodbine. And I says, just call everybody up and tell them that I'm calling it a career. I've accomplished everything I can accomplish.
Did you think about that for a long time, or was that just on the spur of the moment?
It just was at spur of the moment. I was like, I had him, but I didn't have any other big stake horses, and I wanted to see how he was going to do in the Prince of Wales. I kind of had a rough trip in the plate, and he ran okay. We'd come back and breezed him on the dirt, and we'd put blinkers on him going into the Prince of Wales. And he breezed really, really well. And Stu and I were pretty excited about him. I thought he was going to run well, but it ended up coming up pretty slick, and unfortunately, he cut himself up pretty good that day. So it just, it wasn't his kind of course, and it was one of those. But I got to, just driving home, even my significant Jennifer, I didn't even tell her until that day. And I told Kemplin, and she's like, "Are you sure?" I says, "Yeah." I said, I'm not coming off an injury. I'm not coming off some surgery. I can walk away happy with what I've accomplished. And she goes, "Oh, just ride the ones you're named on." I says, "No, because there's always going to be one more. There's always going to be just one more." I didn't want to stick around just to ride horses.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I could have stuck around, rode 4 or 5 a week, but I had no big horse no more. I had no couple stake horses, and I'd come back from so many injuries that I didn't want another injury to define me leaving the game.
Is that what you strive for? Is getting those big moments? I feel like as a jockey or athletes in general, you want the big moments.
You do.
You just don't want to just go out there and, like you said, just ride horses.
Everybody wants to win races. I mean, whether it's a big race or a little race, winning races is what we're in the game for. But when you don't have those big horses like the possible plate horse, or an older stake horse, or the good older filly, I mean a turf horse, if you don't have those significant horses, you kind of get to a point in your career after you've come back from so many injuries that you're like, why am I still doing this?
Right.
You win the plate, you win the Oaks, you win the Prince of Wales, you win all these stakes, you've rode the Kentucky Derby, you've rode Breeders' Cup races, you win 3,700 races in your career almost. What more do you have to accomplish? When are you happy? And I was happy with, I'd been in Alvelina Gomez, I was inducted in the Washington State Hall of Fame, I was inducted in the Canadian Hall of Fame. So you've had all these accomplishments and accolades. So like, Gary, what do you need to get hurt again before you say you've had enough?
That's right.
And I have a 4-year-old son now that, at the time he was 2. And I said, I can enjoy my son. I can spend more time with him than I got to spend with any of my other children. And I was happy with what I had done. Was it a big surprise to people? People had got to a point that they were scared to ride me on certain horses because they didn't want to be the ones that ended my career.
And you knew about that. You felt it.
Oh, I knew.
I'd
heard.
Did it actually tell you that, or you just felt it?
No, I'd heard. I'd heard not directly from them, but like from their groom or from an exercise rider. I said, well, but let me decide. Let me get on the horse and breeze it, and I'll tell you if I want to ride him or not. Because I could get hurt just as bad on any horse, whether it's a stake horse or it's just a horse in the morning.
Yeah.
I said, so it wasn't about, but the owners, they weren't even asking for you as much. They wanted those younger kids, whether it was KK or, so it got to a point where when your name used to be like second or third on the list, or even first on the list with some trainers, you weren't even in the conversation no more.
Why does that happen though? Because you guys are experienced. All jockeys are experienced riders, and then you get to a point where people just want something different. It's
like any sport, age does become a factor.
That's right. That's right.
And
we can't forget that.
It is, and it's unfortunate, but it's not unfortunate. It's part of the game. It is, you know, and yeah, everybody likes to go out on sure, I would have liked to have win my last race instead in the winter, so okay, you know what, guys, I'm calling it a career, but it didn't go out that way. But I got to a point to where I was happy with what I had done, and even my morning work in the morning had gotten less and less, where I was, instead of breezing, you know, 7 or 8 on a Saturday, I was only breezing 2 or 3, and maybe only 6 or 7 on the whole week. So like you weren't getting new horses thrown at you, and there was such an influx of riders. A lot of new riders would come here.
There's a lot of riders now,
and like gobbling up a lot of the little horses that used to fall wayside. And you know, if it got to where, you know, you're really just you're scrapping around for whatever was there, and there was not a whole lot left. And I said, you know what, guys, I can call this a great career and be happy with what I've done.
Who are some of the influential people in this business for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, rider-wise, I mean, I grew up watching Pin Kai and Shu and them, and I was fortunate enough that I got to ride with them. I mean, I thought Lafitte Pin Kai was probably the strongest rider I ever seen on a horse.
Everyone keeps saying that, you know.
He was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I've seen him do things on horses was like wowed me. Like you thought he was done at the 8th pole. They were going to run by him, and you know, Lafitte would just pick their heads up, and they keep going. They'd keep going.
But I've heard some of the American riders talk about Sandy Hawley.
I rode a little bit with Sandy. I mean, Sandy was more of a slasher. Like he could really tear a horse up. You know, he got into one pretty hard. But I mean, you had different types of riders. I mean, I thought Eddie Delahousie was one of the smartest riders around. Didn't look great on a horse, but super intelligent. Jerry Bailey was probably the most technical rider I'd ever been around. I mean, broke races down and understood them and rode really technically great races. Fernando Toro on the turf was just amazing watching. Like he always saved ground. He always was in the right spot. You know, he just rode grass races phenomenal. So being able to ride with some of those guys, they were all influential in different ways.
I mean, you guys are so competitive, but do you give the other riders that amount of respect too as well? Like I know you guys are competitive, but you say, okay, you're pretty good. You know, is that how it works? I
mean, I did back then riding with those guys. I mean, I wanted to learn. Like I went and rode Santa Anita 3 winters when I was up in the old Longacres. Because I wanted to go learn from the best. And Lafitte was still riding. She was still riding. Delahousie, McCarran, Gary Stevens, Toro. You know, so I wanted to go down to Santa Anita and ride with those guys to learn from them. I wanted to learn what they knew. What could they help me improve? And that's all I wanted to become as good a rider as I possibly could for me. And riding with those guys, I mean, you got to see, like, Shu was, like, so patient. Like, he could sit all day long. You know, smart, kind of... tenacious type of rider, where Delahousie was a super smart rider, had a great clock in his head. Stevens was you know, finesse, but he also was a good speed rider. Patrick Valenzuela, phenomenal speed rider. Phenomenal speed rider.
I remember him.
Yeah. I mean, P-Val, so you'd learn. I'd sit in the hot box with whether it was Lafitte, and we'd talk about stories, and she would tell me stories about that he did when they'd be playing cards, and they wanted you to be good, because then they knew how you were going to ride. They weren't guessing. They knew how you were going to ride. And the better rider they made you, the better they could ride races as well, because you weren't a question to them. Why is he up there? He should be back here. Why is he there? So, like, they knew by just talking with you and getting you understand different things. And, you know, Shu probably taught me a lot of patience as a young rider. Says, you know, sometimes you got to wait a little bit longer, even if you know you have a lot of horse. And
do you think that's something that, you know, most riders don't get? Because, you know, sometimes we see riders, they're just not as patient as some of the, I won't say better riders, but, you know, more patient riders.
The problem with our younger riders that I've seen over the last 10 years is they already think they know.
I've heard this too.
They don't come and ask you questions. In like the last 10 years I was riding, I had 2 apprentices that came and asked me if I could help them with different aspects. And all the other ones, like, you could pull them up and say, hey, listen, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they, I know. Well, I know. Well, if you know so much, why you keep doing the same thing? You can't do that. Like, they didn't think they they had to be told. They knew everything. They didn't need any help with their riding technique, their riding time. None. They all, you talk to them and kind of give you that smile. Okay, I know, like blowing you off.
You think that is because as athletes to themselves, they're so competitive, they don't want to really hear from you. They just want to kind of like beat you or whatever.
Yeah, I think that the whole mentality of it has changed with the way kids are nowadays on the computers and the internet, and they watch video replay and they think they can learn enough from just watching replays of races instead of actually having somebody tell them why they did something or how they knew to break it down that way. How do I develop those skills? Well, you'd ask. If you asked, someone would be sitting down and teaching you. But you don't ask. So you guys, we come and tell you you're doing something wrong, and you tell us, I know. Look, if you know so much, like, well, why am I telling you? I'm trying to help you. You said, well, how could I learn how to do that, Gary? They thought they knew everything.
Now, where were you born?
Drayton Valley, Alberta.
Alberta?
Yeah.
I thought you were American for some reason or the other. Maybe because you rode down the States quite a bit.
Most of my career is down there.
I met your son.
Yeah.
Is he American?
He's born in America.
Oh, maybe that's why.
He's got dual citizenship.
Yeah. I see him down there now. What do you feel about him riding? You got a son now who's a rider. Does it make you nervous or make you excited?
I'm excited for him. Guys, you're always, knowing us, in our sport, we always say it's not when you get hurt, it's how bad.
Right.
You're going to get hurt no matter what. It's just what.
Does that give you like a grit in your belly sometimes when you have to, really think about that?
No, you're always going to worry, but like knowing, if you know up front that him riding and the possibility of him getting hurt bad is very possible. Well, you know what? I felt safer on top of a horse than I did some days going down 410. The highway traffic is stupid. At times, and people zooming in and out, and you got no idea what they're going to do. Whereas, like, I felt I was safer riding a race than driving home sometimes at night. The traffic would be so bad during rush hour. So, it's more what you become accomplished. But watching my son ride, you're always going to be a little bit worried that something could happen.
Oh.
No matter what.
Now, you got a 4-year-old, you said, right?
Yes.
It's a boy or girl?
Boy.
What if he wants to ride too as well? How would you feel about that?
That's what he wants to do. He'll go to college. He'll get a college education. He'll go to get his high school diploma and all that. But I believe everybody has choices in life. And I don't want to influence what he wants to do. I want it to be his desire, his dream. And he loves horses. He comes out here and he rides our old pony Rambo with me. He's not crazy about one thing right now. It's more about toys and stuff like that, going to school, playing with his friends, being 4. But he loves it at the barn. Like, he comes to the barn with me in the morning some days before school. He'll come and do a couple stalls, and he's got to do it by himself. Like, you can't help him.
Wait, he's going to do stalls?
He does stalls.
How old is this kid again?
4.
4 years old?
Yeah.
My goodness. This is really good. I was telling Shirley that, this is really good to see, to have kids grounded, right?
Yeah.
Because, I feel like if a lot of the kids need this kind of stuff, just getting out here in the open and do some stuff, some real physical work.
He does it. He'll go to his stall and he's got to have his own pitchfork and his own muck bucket, and then he'll say, "Dad, my muck bucket's full, come dump it." And then I'll dump it into the back of the manure spreader, and he'll fill another one, and he knows the difference between the clean stuff and the dirty stuff.
Are you happy right now?
Yeah.
I feel like if you shave your face and put you back in some silks, you'll be good to go again.
Oh, I could.
Because I feel like if a lot of jockeys, man, once they get around the energy and stuff like that, they want to. I saw what's the name, Constant Montpellier the other day at King's Plate.
Yeah.
He said he was done with that, I guess. But I feel like if any moment people can just.
You know what? I'm fortunate enough that I get to work with our yearlings here, and I broke like 13 of our yearlings and 9 of ours and 4 client horses, and that kind of is my spark. Like, it gives me that good feeling. I'm working with these young babies and seeing the changes, and teaching them from ground zero to where they're letting you belly on them, they're letting you ride in the stall, they're letting you ride them in the round pen, they're letting you ride them in the big arena, learning all the little lessons they have to learn. Is like Tony says, I can see you're glowing when you're working with the babies.
Right.
And that's just because I love seeing that development and that growth that they're doing. So yeah, if it was to ride another race, you know, everybody would want, like, if you want to ride one more, well, it would have to be a pretty special horse.
Man, horse racing is something else. But you know, the direction of horse racing right now in North America, well, how do you feel about that? Because, you know, it's big in Japan, Australia still, but in North America, you know, do you think we're going in the right direction?
I think there's a lot of tough scenarios in horse racing that have probably hurt us as an industry. I don't see it growing bigger and bigger as it should be. I don't think it's evolving the right way right now, and I don't know exactly why. We don't have the people or the crowds that we used to have.
But I feel like that's everywhere, though. I mean, I see it at some tracks where at Oakland, for example, like you'll see people out there on just a regular day.
Yeah.
But most of the other tracks, you know, is pretty much the same. I guess they're either making bets or something on their phones or whatever.
And I don't know what's caused our popularity or the crowds not to come. Have we not, as an industry, done the right things to attract people to the track more often? I mean, what are we doing as an industry to get the family to come out to the races? Do we offer things for like kids and that at the track to do while their parents might be watching a race? Or, I mean, we've done nothing to evolve to keep the younger generation coming into the game. Unless you had a parent or an uncle or aunt that was involved in racing, a lot of young kids would never ever come to the track.
Yeah.
But we as an industry aren't doing things to attract new people. Having a casino, we have to get them to the casino, but it doesn't get them involved in horse racing.
That's right. That's right.
So,
some work to be done. I feel like if you know, it can be done though, because, you know, they say the world is like a cycle. So,
yes.
You know, so, you know, it's only a matter of time before it turns over again.
I don't think will ever die off as an industry. I think we're going to go through highs and lows no matter what. I just think that the tendency the last little while has been on kind of on a downward spiral where it's not going the right direction.
Quickly ask you a question here about Alberta, because you know, it used to be horse country. Do you think it's still horse country?
It used to be cattle and oil. My dad was in the oil industry.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't been out there in years, and I don't know how much it's evolved as far as the oil industry's kind of slowed down out there. Even the Syncrude up in northern Alberta has slowed down. So it might be more cattle and horses now than it was before.
Times have changed.
Everything does.
Do you miss the jockey's room?
Yeah. You'll always miss that. I mean,
what do you miss about the jockey's room?
Just the little, you know, the back scene camaraderie, and, you know, whether it was playing cards with some of the guys, or, you know, every now and then you'd have a pool game, or we used to have ping pong, and big at the end was backgammon. We were playing a lot of backgammon, a bunch of us different riders. But just that little buzz in the room, I mean, it's kind of, to put words on it, really you can't explain, but you just, being in a locker room of a sports team, guys are always going to miss that scenario. You know, you miss some of the guys I'm still in contact with, and, you know, I went to the track a few different times, but it'll never be the same. You know, you're going in there and, you know, shower, shave, or go in the hot box for a while and talk, you know, what's going on, or talk about if somebody asks you about a horse or a race, you know, that you just won or you rode the other day. All that, you know, people don't see what really happens back there.
Does it change from track to track, and which is the most exciting or, I don't know, interesting jockey room you've been in?
It changes from track to track, but I mean, being at Santa Anita with those guys, with Lafitte and that, obviously that'll be always something special to me, and being able to ride with those guys. I was fortunate. I rode Shoemaker's last race.
Well, that must be special.
It was. And, you know, there was like 60,000 people there with all these signs, and I rode for Charlie Whittingham, and he told me, like, everybody's trying to get Shoemaker home. Everybody knew that what the gig was, and, you know, Charlie told me, he says, don't have this horse within 15 lengths of anything. Just bury him. Bury him. It was like 1.1 miles on the grass, and, everybody's holding, and like we got him on the lead at like turning for home, and I'm way back there, and he just run out of horse.
Are you working more hours now, or are you working less hours now?
Different kind of hours.
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably working more hours on the clock, but it's, obviously it's not as dangerous.
Right.
I mean, I'm not on top of a horse doing 40 miles an hour anymore.
Right.
I'm working with a lot of horses, so there's a lot of little things like, giving treatments to different horses at different times, and, setting up feed and different feed programs for different individuals, adjusting to each one so they're optimizing their feed and getting the most out of it, where I see them putting weight on, or, their coats are coming around and things like that. Setting up, farriers come, vets to come if we need vet work done. Like we have 4 brood mares here. December, one of them gets her 7th month prenatal shots, which is basically an anti-abort shot.
Oh, I see.
Just protective stuff.
Well, we spoke earlier, and you said you don't know if the industry is doing enough to attract younger people into it and get them involved. But what you're doing here right now, this is pretty awesome. To be quite honest, if more jockeys did stuff like this, get out there, I think it would be helpful too as well. I
mean, I think it would. The more you know about the animals you're working with, the better you can do with them. And and that's my approach as a rider was, the more I knew about the horse I was riding, the better I could ride them. So the better you understand these animals and their traits and their habits and what they're really like, and like most young kids, I tell them, most people think like a human, they react like a human around a horse. You need to start thinking like a horse. You want to see a horse act the right way around you? Think like a horse. What a horse would do in the herd. How would they reprimand another horse? Well, they wouldn't smack them right away. They'd give them a warning, whether it was flick a tail or give them a look with their head, or maybe just move their arm a little bit at them. They would do a warning. They just don't go after them right away. Well, if you continue doing the bad thing, they're going to give you a stern warning. Then it's going to be a harsh one if you keep doing it. So people say, well, so watch them in a herd. You watch 4 or 5 horses out there playing. You watch things and you'll learn more about horses. And I think that's what most riders don't do nowadays. They just go out and they learn how to breeze horses and ride, and they start riding races, and some of the horsemanship skills have been lost, where I've always been a horseman through my whole career. I wanted to know more about them, and the more I knew about them, the better I could ride them.
Well, I know you're from Alberta. I want to ask you about I won't say a little kid, but about Fraser. Do you pay attention to?
Honestly, I mean, he came around after I had retired. I've seen his name, and I know, his agent. I've watched a handful of races since I've retired. Seen him ride some races. He looks like he has a good seat on horse, but I don't know him personally enough to say this about him. Like he's this type of rider, he's that type of rider. You see he's winning some races. He's rode some races for Mark, and, getting the opportunities is what you want as a young rider.
That's right.
But I couldn't say that I watched him enough where I could break him down as a rider, telling him what things he needed to work on as a rider to improve. But if he's smart, he's asking Olguin. I think Olguin has his book, Jerry Olguin.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
he's talking with him to learn some things that he needs to develop, and I'm sure Jerry's pointing some mistakes he's made and things he could help him in a race. That's what you kind of do as an agent and being an ex-rider. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. But I couldn't break him down that way.
Well, Gary, man, it seems like you're very comfortable in this spot right now.
It's a pretty amazing place.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got tons of stories you probably can tell.
I could.
Maybe one day I'll come back and we can chat some more.
Absolutely.
I'll really appreciate that, man.
Okay.
I'll come back here when it gets warmer.
Okay.
I think I'm going south for the winter, so maybe after I'll come back in the spring.
Anytime.
And speak with you. Nice talking with you.
Pleasure. All right, man.
That's pretty cool. Not every day.